Welcome back to The Explainer. Today, I am absolutely fascinated and honestly a little spooked to unpack one of the most chilling, completely unsettled mysteries on record. We're talking about the enigma of the Yuba City Five. Today, we're cutting through all that internet noise and looking directly at the raw, verified facts. Did you know that 5 men once essentially vanished into thin air, leaving behind a perfectly good escape route? I promise you, just looking at the timeline of these events is enough to send a literal shiver right down your spine. Okay, let's dive into this. What if I told you America has its own Dyatlov Pass? Now I know, that is an incredibly bold claim to make. But as we progress through this explainer and build out the actual facts of what went down, you're going to see exactly why that harrowing comparison hits the nail right on the head. We are looking at a profound, mind-bending paradox of logic that has totally baffled investigators for over 4 decades.
Real quick, for those who might need a refresher, the Dyatlov Pass Incident is essentially the gold standard for terrifying, completely unexplained deaths. It's that infamous 1959 Russian case where experienced hikers literally tore their tents open from the inside out and fled into sub-zero snow without their boots. It's a case where the circumstances were just so deeply bizarre that standard human logic simply breaks down. And that concept, that total collapse of survival instinct and logic, is exactly the framework we need to keep in our minds as we look at the Yuba City Five today.
Section 1. The 1978 Disappearance.
5 men. We have Ted, Gary, Jack Madruga, Jack Hewitt, and Bill. These were 5 friends who willingly walked out of their normal lives and right into a remote mountain wilderness. On the night of February 24, 1978, they were just returning home from a college basketball game at Chico State. Nothing unusual, right? They knew the area well. They even had clear plans for the very next morning, including a basketball tournament of their own. And yet, this is where the jarring paradox of this whole mystery really kicks off. Instead of taking the easy highway south to their homes, they drove deep into the unforgiving, totally snow-covered Plumas National Forest. They drove up into those freezing mountains and, well, they never came back alive.
Let's move along and see how this builds. So, we start the sequence in February 1978. With the initial disappearance of the guys right after that basketball game. Then, days later, investigators get a massive break in the case. Rescuers locate their abandoned car, and it was found way up on a remote mountain dirt road, literally miles away from any logical route they should have been taking. But the truly chilling part of this timeline is that final point. The winter weather up there was just too brutal to keep searching the vast terrain. So it isn't until months later, when the spring thaw finally arrives, that the bodies are actually discovered.
Section 2. The bizarre discoveries. Now, I want us to really slow down here and step directly into the role of a detective, because the anomalies we need to meticulously unpack next, well, they defy all standard human behavior. Now, what's really interesting about this is what was absolutely fine with their vehicle. Rescuers found their 1969 Mercury Montego just days after the disappearance. Guys, it wasn't stuck in the mud, it wasn't trapped on a snowbank, the undercarriage wasn't damaged in any mechanical way whatsoever. Sure, it was resting on a rough mountain road, but 5 strong men could have easily pushed it out if they felt it was slightly bogged down. It had plenty of gas, the keys were gone, but the car was perfectly operational. And yet, it was simply abandoned in the wilderness.
As seasoned local sheriffs and investigators noted when they first walked up to the vehicle, the scene looked, quote, as if everyone had walked away. Just think about that for a second. Why would 5 men, none of whom were equipped for a severe winter hike, just step out of a perfectly safe, functioning vehicle and voluntarily walk into freezing, pitch-black elements? It completely lacks any semblance of survival logic.
And the mystery only deepens from there. Months later, the vast, snowy, high-elevation terrain finally yields its grim secret. The bodies of the men are discovered. But they weren't huddled together for warmth near the safety of the car. No, they were found scattered. The remains were discovered up to 19 miles away from the abandoned vehicle, across incredibly rugged wilderness. To get there, they would have had to trek through deep snowdrifts in the freezing dark, wearing nothing but the light jackets and sneakers they wore to the college basketball game.
And this brilliantly illustrates the ultimate terrifying paradox of the whole case. One of the men, Ted Wayhar, was eventually found inside a Forest Service trailer. He was wrapped head to toe in multiple sheets, and tragically, he had lost nearly half his body weight. He died from starvation and severe exposure. But just feet away from him, inside that very same trailer, was a literal cache of sea rations and freeze-dried food. There was enough food in that trailer to keep all 5 men alive for an entire year. Yet, he barely touched it. The friction between his desperate need to survive and the actual choices made inside that trailer is just baffling.
So let's methodically list what investigators simply did not find. Because in this case, the absence of evidence is a huge piece of the puzzle. There were absolutely no signs of murder or foul play at any of the scenes. None. There's no clear explanation for their scattered behavior, or why they left their heavier winter coats back down in the valley before even driving up. They had no maps. And most importantly, there was no logical reason for driving up a mountain road they didn't know, completely abandoning total safety, and ignoring life-saving food.
Which absolutely forces us to ask the million-dollar question: what were they running from?
Section 3. Hypothermia or something darker?
Look, despite decades passing, and despite experts literally poring over these exact facts time and time again, even today's investigators cannot fully explain what happened out there in the cold. So the crucial point is understanding the divide and how this unresolved case is viewed today. The theories generally fall into two distinct camps. On one side, experts point to severe hypothermia. Extreme cold can trigger a psychological phenomenon called paradoxical undressing, or terminal confusion. This leads freezing victims to make incredibly irrational choices, like walking away from a running car, or failing to open a can of food sitting right in front of them. But on the other hand, based on the sheer panic implied by their scattered, 19-mile flight in the pitch black, others believe something far darker happened. Theories suggest foul play, maybe a physical confrontation, or someone intimidating them off the road that night, chasing them deep into the woods. Now, we aren't here to endorse one viewpoint over the other, but rather to show you the intense, lingering debate that these facts have generated.
5 men, 1 perfectly working car, a trailer full of food, and 0 survivors. So what do you think really happened to the Yuba City 5? Look at the evidence we've covered today. I want you to drop into the comments and share your theory on this deeply unsettling puzzle, because I absolutely love reading how you all piece these clues together. And hey, if you found this explainer helpful and want to explore more real, dark mysteries structured exactly like this, make sure to follow. See you on the next one.